Hello, my name is Wesley Cragen. I am an avid reader, writer, and lover of all things creative. In this video, I would like to discuss my experiences and challenges as a writer, specifically in regards to the issue of creative freedom. Afterward, I would like to share a special announcement about my YouTube content, which has to do with the overall theme of this video. The meaning of creative freedom, at least in my mind, is the ability to write what you want, how you want it written. That means that no one gets in the way or tries to change your content to anything other than the way you want it. As a child, and later as a teen, I would write my own fictional stories. Some were fantasy, some were romance, and some were comedy, but they all had one thing in common. They came from my own imagination. They were written as only I could and would write them, unique to my own style and tastes. I greatly enjoyed the exercise in imagination that was writing fiction. I even had thoughts of being a fiction author when I grew up. But there was a problem, and it was something that discouraged me greatly and still discourages me today. That problem can be summed up in one word: editing. I wasn't afraid to revise my own work in order to make it better. That's not what I mean by saying I had a problem with editing. What I mean is this: I was told as a youngster that all authors who publish books must first send their completed works to a hired editor, whose job it is to correct, change, or remove any part of the material that said editor finds unworthy to be in the book. In other words, before your book could be published, this one person had to read it, say what he or she didn't like about it, and then either alter or completely remove the offending parts of the material. The reason this discouraged me from writing is because I did not like the thought of someone else changing my work. I thought it completely defeated the purpose of creativity and authorial freedom for material that was written by me and rightfully my own to be challenged by someone else. It made me so distraught that I even thought at one point that I would never again wish to be an author. When I was a teenager, I told some people close to me about my fears concerning this matter. They tried to correct my view of editors, telling me that this view was not entirely accurate and that my insecurities were unfounded. Editors, according to them, did not change the content of your book, but simply corrected mistakes such as misspelt words, grammatical errors, redundancy, and run-on sentences. This calmed me down somewhat, but I think I was still skeptical and didn't entirely believe them. As I've grown older, I've realized more and more that I was probably right, and that my counselors, though well-meaning, did not fully grasp the creative control that editors really have. I have found this out by analyzing other well-known creative writers and their works. One example of this comes from Christian author and evangelist Max Lucado. Recently, I was reading one of his books, which I will not name, and came across a joke which I will not quote here. Directly below the joke, in parentheses, was a note from Mr. Lucado saying that he had, quote, fought 2 editors to keep that particular joke in the book. This set off alarm bells in my head once again, renewing my youthful concerns about the practice of editing. If editors, I thought, could challenge something like a joke, saying that it should not even be included in the text, then that means their job was definitely not limited to correcting mere spelling and grammatical errors. It would imply that they do in fact have serious influence and even control over the author's content. Another example of a famous writer having his creativity challenged is George Lucas, the famous filmmaker known for being the creator of the Star Wars films. Although this example has to do with film scripts and not literary works, I feel it still exemplifies my problems with the practice of editing. George Lucas once said in an interview, quote, "You go to make a movie and all you do is get criticized, and people try to make decisions about what you're going to do before you do it. You know it's not much fun, and you can't experiment. You can't do anything. You have to do it a certain way." End quote. The fact that Lucas believes that even in writing the scripts for films, you can't experiment creatively without interference, seems to prove how very limited creative freedom is in all forms of writing. It just confirms to me that I am right to be concerned about my creative wishes not being respected. Before I move on to the part of this piece in which I talk about my solution to this problem, I would like to share an example of how I am afraid an editor would change my own work. Right now, I am creating a new series of fictional short stories that involve the coming-of-age adventures of a twin brother and sister. The stories begin when the twins are born, and I plan to continue the series until they graduate from college and get married. Each year in the lives of the twins is told in 4 short stories, and each of the 4 stories takes place at a different season of the year. As part of my creative plan for this series, I have decided to put the year the events take place at the beginning of every story, preceded by the season. For example, the first story about the birth of the twins begins with the words Spring 1993. The second story, which I am currently writing, begins with Summer 1993, and so on and so on. I view the years and seasons given at the beginning of each entry in this series as being an essential part of the story I want to tell. This particular aspect of this new series is very important to me. However, the thought has popped into my mind that if I were to publish these stories someday, an editor would, for whatever reason, not like the inclusion of the years and seasons at the beginning of each entry and try to have them removed. If that were the case, it would be a very difficult thing for me to accept. So what have I decided to do about these fears? Am I still giving up, vowing never to write? Not exactly. I have decided that instead of trying to publish my stories, I will simply write them on Microsoft Word, reread them and correct any errors or rough edges that I see, and then record them on my phone before uploading them to my YouTube channel. This way, I can share my stories with the world the way I want to share them without any unwanted changes being made to them. I also plan to try to get my YouTube channel off the ground in this way and perhaps gain more viewers and subscribers for my content. Before I go, I would like to stress that I am not by any means trying to declare war on editors, nor am I saying that editing should be abolished. I personally would never dictate to other aspiring authors whether or not they should hire editors for their own work. I am simply trying to take a stand for creative freedom in my own way, a way that perhaps has never been tried before. I admit this experiment may or may not succeed, but whatever happens, I want to at least be able to say that I tried to make a positive difference in the world of creativity and art. My name is Wesley Cragen. Thank you for listening.